The Himalayan waters that originated from the snow-covered mountains flow through the Indus and tributaries over the fertile soil in Gandhara and Swat Valley has created a green paradise for human habitation. It became the cradle of an ancient civilization and evolved timeless cultural traditions, starting from Stone Age man, coming up to 7,000-year-old Gandhara Civilization with great artistic achievements as exhibited in their pottery, followed by Indus Valley Civilization of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. The great era of artistic Gandhara continued from the 3rd century AD. This story of civilizations stand unfolded, their remaining monuments, antiquities, and the creative manifestation of the land and Indus and its tributaries. Gandhara and Udyana, that is what being the land that connects the east and west, with crossroads bringing not only traders, but the cultures, pilgrims, philosophers, travelers and scholars, playing a special role in the cultural history of this region and the world at large. As a result of the 3rd Buddhist Council, held in the 3rd century BC, headed by Mahathera Muggaliputtadissa, with the patronage of Emperor Ashoka, Buddhist missionaries were sent to 7 countries carrying the noble message of the Buddha. On this occasion, Mahathera Majantika was sent to Gandhara and Kashmir carrying Theravada or Hinayana doctrine. With this it happened, Emperor Ashoka initiated constructing stupas and monasteries, developing and stabilizing Buddhism in Gandhara and Udyana. This was the beginning of a new religio-cultural civilization with a special identity, resulting in the creation of this great art tradition of Gandhara, the Buddhist heritage of Pakistan. Construction of Buddhist monasteries started in the 3rd century BC and continued with the patronage of kings and merchants for a period of more than 8 centuries, as indicated by Chinese traveler monks Fahian, Huansang, who visited Gandhara and Udyana from the 5th century onwards. There were monasteries in large numbers. As exhibited in archaeological remains of old monasteries of this civilization, there are 2 architectural components: a magnificent stupa surrounded by a large number of small stupas, and separate buildings of the residential monastery. For all building construction, special skillfully designed rubble masonry techniques have been utilized. The stupa is the most dominating architectural edifice in a monastery complex, and also the most sacred and venerated building, because it enshrines bodily or associated relics of the Buddha. It is apparent that the construction of early stupas have followed the Magadha architectural form, but later developed into a special form of Gandhara stupa architecture. The solid dome is constructed with rubble-packed masonry, placed on a drum or square podium decorated with lines, and lines of seated Buddha statues and decorative pilasters made in rubble and stucco. There were many magnificent stupas built in Gandhara, which were among the wonders of the world. The great Peshawar Stupa, built by Kanishka in the 4th century. This was reported as that the height was more than 180 meters tall and adorned with jewels. It had an iron spire fitted with gold and copper umbrellas. According to Fayan, there was not one comparable to this stupa in solemn beauty as magnificent Gandhara. Takshila was the land of learning with many centuries of education. Takshila was known as the earliest international university in the world. There were 68 elective courses, including 18 arts, sutras, satras, vidya, grammar, logic, Ayurveda, and many more. World-renowned authorities like Panini, Chanakya, Charaka Jivaka were products of this university. There were 10,000 students, 2,000 masters with residential facilities, monastery like Dharmarajika, Mora Muradu, Jualian, Bamala were Buddhist education centers in Takshila. The Dharmarajika Stupa is considered as the holiest shrine built by Emperor Asoka in the 3rd century BC, enshrining the bodily relics of the Buddha. Stupa construction has followed Magadha architectural tradition. This stupa with 50 meters diameter solid dome is placed on a circular podium with a wide pradakshinapada or perambulatory path around the base of the dome. Climb through 4 flights of steps facing 4 cardinal directions. Currently remaining part of the dome is only 11 meters. But when total structure is conjectured following the form of contemporary metal relic caskets, the height would have been more than 75 meters. During the excavations carried by the British archaeologist Sir John Marshall in 1930, discovered a pot-shaped stone casket, and inside that a golden casket containing the bodily relics of the Buddha, presently protected at the Takshila Museum. Further, a large extent of land around the main stupa is occupied by more than 100 sacred buildings, mostly stupas and Buddha image shrines. Along the boundary of the circular path, way around the stupa has formed a ring of buildings. These are small stupas and shrines. Hundreds of stupas have been built in this sacred precinct, where all have enshrined the funeral remains of Arhats, Mahaderas, and chief incumbents who lived in this monastery throughout its existence. It was found the caskets discovered from these small stupas belong to different periods in history. Out of these, 2 of the special large stupas are well decorated with stucco sculpture. Among the image houses with seated Buddha images, there are 2 shrines that would have had large standing Buddha images, where Buddha feet found in situ is about a meter in length, giving an indication that the standing Buddha statue would have been about 10 meters in height. Most of the residential buildings of the monastery were little away from the main stupa, towards the northwest, with living cells built on 4 sides of large square courtyard. Stupa and its monastic complex are located on the right bank of the Haro River. This rather secluded sanctuary in and around Takshila, like Julian, Mohiamuradu and Dharmarajika, like the dominating stupa, is placed in the center of linear setting, special in its form, with 4 wide flights of steps leading onto the tall square podium of the stupa. As found in other monasterian, large number of small stupas that enshrine the funeral remains of Arahats and Mahathera were built around. Another large stupa is found next to the image house with the largest reclining Buddha image. 14 meters long, the large Sangharama or priest's residence with many spacious buildings and rows of living cells are placed on the other side of the stupa is showing the large extent Bamala Monastery. Takhti Bai is one of the most impressive monastery complexes built covering many hilltops. This extraordinary monument has been a treasure trove of relics, artifacts and beautifully carved sculpture in stone and stucco, displaying the artistic grandeur of Gandhara art. It has also provided a wealth of information about monastic life of the past. The main stupa, built on a square podium, is placed in the middle of a large rectangular courtyard, entered through 1 flight of steps, and all 4 sides are surrounded by meditating cells. 2-story Sangharama with living cells built around an open court is annexed with large meeting halls and other service building. Additional secondary stupas and a large number of small stupas built enshrining relics of Arahats and Mahatheras have occupied the space between the stupa and Sangharama. This is a World Heritage Site composed of extraordinary artistic achievements of Gandhara Civilization. In the history of Buddhist art of the world, the Greco-Indian artist in Gandhara was credited with creating the first Buddha image in human form, and later it was filtered into the rest of the Buddhist world. In Gandhara Civilization that creates a unique art tradition, the sculptures that were used as icons or became part of architectural decoration were made mainly in stone and stucco masonry, representing all 4 postures of the Buddha: seated, standing, walking, and reclining. The face of the Buddha was majestic and beautiful, with a pointed nose and long ears. In earlier Gandhara art, the Buddha was represented with well-combed curly hair, but later changed as the hair is coiled and fixed onto the head. In most of the statues, the robe is shown and it covers both shoulders, but in some shown as an easy dress covering only one shoulder. In some of the impressive art compositions, the Buddha is seated on a lotus pedestal in Padmasana or cross-legged position, with hands showing the Samadhi meditation or Dhammachakra, the preaching posture in all compositions. It was noticed that God Indra and Brahma attended as guardians and standing on either side of the Buddha. Later, with Mahayana practice, those 2 divine personalities were transcended to Maitreya and Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. With the help of monks, the sculpture have identified, understood, and separately carved all important happenings in Buddha's life, further to the previous life of the Buddha, as related in Jataka stories such as Shyama, Visantara, Maitreya Kanyaka, also have been carved. During the time of the Buddha, Dipankara, one of the 24 predecessors of historical Buddhas, Siddhartha Gautama was born as ascetic Sumedha and offered to build a path to Dipankara Buddha and requested the Buddha to walk over his hair to protect himself from mud on the road. On that occasion, Dipankara Buddha confirmed that Sumedha will be born as a Gautama Buddha in the future. And the girl depicted in the composition as offering flowers also will be his wife, Yashodhara. When Siddhartha was in the haven as a bodhisattva, gods including Indra and Brahma came and invited him to be born in the human world to become the Buddha. As a result, Mahamaya, queen of King Suddhodana, had a dream that a white baby elephant carrying a lotus in his trunk entered her body. This episode is depicted as Queen Maya is sleeping on her bed with her attendants standing around and an elephant in a divine balloon entering the queen's body. The dream was interpreted by king's advisors as that she had conceived a son, and one day he will be a great emperor or supreme Buddha. It was a tradition to go to parents' house to deliver the first baby. When Queen Maya was on the way in a procession to her parents' palace, while she was resting Lumbini Sala Grove, Prince Siddhartha was born. This was a special episode for Gandhara artists and composed it standing Queen Maya holding a branch of a sala tree and the baby delivered from the side of her body and was received by Brahma onto a gold cloth, the queen attended by her maids, while Indra is standing close by holding his Vajra. This sculpture as composition is found in many places. Sculpture panel in Swat Museum shows Indra and Brahma conducting the bathing ceremony for the newborn prince by pouring divine water on his head. Further, Prince Siddhartha walking 7 steps on lotus flowers, where he said, "I'm the chief of the world. There is no equal to me. I'm supreme. This is my last birth. No rebirth for me." In all art compositions, Indra and Brahma standing on either side of Prince Siddhartha while carrying their symbols, Vajra and Lotus. After Prince and Queen Mother went back to Kapilavastu, the happy royal father brought the baby to show his master, ascetic Asita. The prince placed his feet on Asita's headrest. Ascetic Asita laughed and then cried. When the king asked why he did that, Asita answered, "One day, Prince will be a Buddha, and that is why I laughed. And I cried, because I will not be living to see that." Among the carvings depicted palace life, there is a fabulous sculpture showing the first meditation of Bodhisattva Siddhartha at the time of annual royal ploughing ceremony, with the royal father seeing this miracle worship the Bodhisattva for the first time. This beautifully carved panel, Siddhartha studying in school, seen holding the tablet and writing on it with a pen. The prince got married at the age of 16, and artists have shown the ceremonial procession and the marriage ceremony performing in front of sacred fire. The great departure of Siddhartha, renunciation of palace life, is presented in detail. The relief shows as he's enjoying palace life with Yashodhara, watching dancing girls. Later the prince saw all dancers and musicians exhausted and sleepy, called Channa to bring horse Kantaka and riding off. After becoming an ascetic, Kantaka, the horse, is kissing the feet of Master Prince Siddhartha while departing from him. The return of Kantaka, the horse with Channa, along with princely belongings, being handed over to the princess. The princess is shown visibly upset and turns her face to show her grief on departure of Siddhartha. Ascetic Siddhartha went and met many masters searching for the path of salvation. In this panel, he met ascetic Alara Kalama, seated in reed enclosure. Siddhartha followed, giving extreme suffering to his body. Starved for 6 years until he looked like a skeleton. Gandhara artist, with his devotion, saw this occurrence as very special and created a sculptural portrait of fasting Bodhisattva. As an incomparable creation in Gandhara art, Siddhartha realized that suffering is not the path he is searching for and started practicing the middle path. One Vesak full moon day, he determined to sit for meditation until he achieved the final goal, that is to become the Buddha. On the way, walking to the Bodhi tree, he met Brahmin Sothya, a grass cutter, and Sothya offered a bundle of grass to be laid when he sat for meditation. During the attainment of Buddhahood, Siddhartha was seated under the Bodhi tree in meditation. Demon King Mara had surrounded Siddhartha with his army with fearful faces, dressed as Greek soldiers to defeat him. Finally, Siddhartha attained Buddhahood and touched the Mother Earth as witness to his success. It is shown as Bhumi Sparsha Mudra. The Buddha received offerings from merchant brothers and walked up to Deer Park at Isipatana, where his 5 ascetic friends lived. The Buddha delivered the first sermon to them, relating Dhammacakka Sutra. The Buddha's teachings are enshrined in the 4 noble truths. That is, suffering, cause of suffering, renounce suffering, the way to get rid of suffering, the noble 8-fold paths. Following special happening in Buddha Charitra were presented in sculpture. Miracle of Sravasti, emitting fire and water from the body. Laming Naga Apulala, arriving at Sankisa. The Buddha in meditation, Buddha in preaching position were some of the popular items. Mahaparinirvana, the death of the Buddha, would have been a sad event for the Gandhara artist to create. Finally, Buddha, at the age of 80, crosses the river Hiranyavati and reached the Upavartana Sala tree grove, where the Buddha lie down between the 2 Sala tree and attained Parinibbana. In some panels, monks and devotees weeping around a sandalwood coffin and ending with cremating fire. After the body of the Buddha was cremated, the relics were divided into 8 portions under the supervision Brahmin Drona and then distributed among the 8 communities waiting to receive it. There are large sculpture panels depicting Buddha preaching from the lotus throne to guardian deities Indra and Brahma, who associated Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, from his birth right through his life. In Mahayana belief, these 2 divine personalities were transcendent as Maitreya and Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, who were venerated in Mahayana Buddhism in highest esteem. It was represented by making large icons of these 2 Bodhisattvas. This great Buddhist art of Gandhara was a product of their devotion. Today, it is valued as art of Gandhara Buddhist heritage of Pakistan.